If you're like many of us here in Oklahoma, particularly if you have a cool season lawn such as fescue or the bluegrasses, you're probably finding that for a variety of reasons it may have thinned out on you this summer. We have some area here out at our Oklahoma Gardening Studio where this has happened. We have a fescue lawn here, and some of the area has really become thin because this is a high traffic area and there's some water problems here, and we're going to go through a procedure of overseeding that. I've had with me today Dr. Mike Kenna, Extension Turf Specialist, OSU, that's going to give us some tips on the procedure for overseeding these cool season lawns. Mike, it's a real pleasure to have you on Oklahoma Gardening.
Well, it's nice to be back, Ray.
Well, it's always good for me to have people like you here because you can do the work and we can reap the benefits from it. But give us some ideas, if you would, on how a person may come in and reclaim some of these thinned areas on these cool season grasses.
Okay, well, as you mentioned, tall fescue is a cool season grass. It's also a bunch grass, so it doesn't have that rhizome or stolon to fill in a lot of the areas over the course of the summertime. So if you get these traffic areas and it gets thin, it's not going to fill in, so we have to help it along by doing a little extra seeding. The first step is that you have this soil. You'd like to have it moist. You don't want to have it overly wet, and you want to work this up so that you can get good seed soil contact. Mm-hmm. So these little three-prong cultivators work out very well for something like this, and all you need to do is just try to run through that area, break up that soil, and anywhere there's a little bit of a bare area, you just kind of run it through.
And this is going to work equally well if a person has, for example, a heavily shaded area or an area under a tree where there's been competition for moisture and nutrients and light this summer, where it's also died out in that area, I assume.
That's right. It's tall fescues got very good shade tolerance, and so for those shaded areas where they've lost some of that grass, either traffic or wear, or just a little tougher area to grow it, and come back in and reseed an area such as this. Okay, now we got this area worked up. You can either use something like a three-prong cultivator. Another piece of equipment that we tried out and works pretty good are these little rotary hoes. They seem to work up the area fairly well. After you get that area worked up, what I like to do is try to get some tall fescue seed, and this is something where you can just, if it's a small area, you can just broadcast it by hand. You don't need to go through a lot of effort using a drop seeder or a rotary seeder, but just for a little small area like this, you try to get about 3 pounds per thousand, which equates to about 2 to 3 seeds per square inch. So you just kind of broadcast that into these areas that you've worked up.
Now we're using the hound dog variety of fescue here, but there's several tall fescue varieties in Oklahoma that we could choose as long as they're available in the area.
That's right. And if they they want some other varieties like Mustang or Rebel, Adventure, Olympic, we have all those listed in with the county agents, and the homeowners can get the information from their county agent. Okay. Okay, you can see I'm not putting a lot out. I'm trying to just get about 2 or 3 seed per square inch, or about 3 pounds per thousand. And after you get that worked in, if you haven't fertilized your lawn recently or don't plan to in the next couple of weeks, it's a good idea to put a little fertilizer out. Now this is one thing where a lot of homeowners, they'll overdo it. Very light broadcasting of fertilizer. You only want to have about a half a pound to a pound of actual land per 1,000 square feet. In this case here, this is a 31% nitrogen product, so we're only going to try to get about 3 pounds per thousand, which is just a very, very light.
So this is one case where if a little is good, a whole lot's going to be detrimental.
That's right. This is really a very light. It just needs just a little bit of a start. And for such a small area like this, now normally if we were doing a really large area, we'd come back in with a lawn roller or something like that and try to firm up the seed soil contact. What we're going to do here is just lightly rake it, and then all I'm going to do is just take my foot and kind of press it in, and that'll take care of that step. So take a lawn rake here and try to get some of this seed and fertilizer pretty much worked into the soil very
Again,
lightly.
the important thing is intimate contact between the soil and the seed, as you
That's
mentioned.
right. That's the key to planting any seed. The better you get your seed-soil contact, the better it's going to do.
Well, I have pretty big feet, so I'd be good at this. I'll help you press this in.
And all we're doing now is just trying to make sure that that seed comes in contact with the soil. And you'll notice that we didn't have a bone-dry soil, or we didn't have a mud puddle here. It's really worked out well. This was just about the right moisture to.
So that might be a tip. If it is real dry, you may want to lightly water your lawn to get some moisture in the soil before you do this then.
That's right. If you feel like you're having to really pound at the soil to break it open, you're probably better off to just go ahead and lightly water it. Try to get the water down to about 1 inch or 2, and then let it dry off, and then just slightly break it. So when you break it up, it kind of crumbles, and that's all there is to it. Now you just come back and lightly water this in. It's going to probably take about 3 very light waterings a day. I usually like to get it done in the morning before I leave for work, in the afternoon area during lunch, and then in the evening before dinner, sometime around there.
I noticed, Mike, you have a breaker hose nozzle, or breaker nozzle for your hose here that you can use, and one of these types of things, or a flare nozzle, I guess would be better than just getting the hose out here and just squirting water on it, because you do want this to be more or less a soft water pattern.
That's right, and I think to try to emulate nature's way here is the best idea, and it's those very light soaker type rains that bring up a good seed crop. So the shower type heads that will just kind of emulate the rain patterns will be the best. They'll do the best job for you.
Well, Mike, I know if you're much more ambitious than this and you want a good green lawn throughout most of the summer, you have a warm season grass such as Bermuda grass, there are techniques in which you can overseed that with cool season grass such as perennial ryegrass. We've got an area over here on the other side of the garden that we may be willing to do that, but what are some tips for that, or why would a person want to overseed with something like perennial ryegrass in the first place?
Well, I know in a lot of our resort areas in the United States, the key word among landscape managers and people in the profession of horticulture is color is king. And there's a lot of avid gardeners that want to have that fall and winter and even early spring colors. So when our Bermuda grass would normally be dormant, they can use something like perennial ryegrass or annual ryegrass and get a nice green lawn. This is particular something that a lot of the people from the north like to see in areas of Oklahoma, and that by far is probably the main reason for doing it is the aesthetics. It really doesn't help the Bermuda grass lawn at all. It's mainly something that if you want that home lawn to stand out, be nice and green during the fall and winter months, or if you want that commercial property to look nice and green, that's the primary reason. It really attracts the eye, and it on a beautiful winter day when the temperatures climb into 70s, you do kind of feel like it's spring a little bit prematurely, but it really does make you give you some happy thoughts during the winter months.
Well, Mike, as I look at our Bermuda grass lawn here toward the end of the season, actually what I like to do is put my mower up and forget about it until next year, but I know there are a lot of people that want to go through the procedure of overseeding their Bermuda grass or warm season lawns with a cool season grass. Kind of recap these steps for us, if you would.
Well, the first thing is that we usually like to use either annual or perennial ryegrass, primarily because these two grasses have a very rapid germination rate, and it doesn't take a long time for them to germinate and start growing. So that's an advantage from that standpoint. With annual ryegrass, it usually takes about 10 pounds of annual ryegrass seed per 1,000 square foot. With perennial ryegrass, you can start lowering that rate somewhere between 5 to 10 pounds per 1,000 square feet. As far as the steps, the first one is that you have a fairly lush Bermuda grass lawn in September. It's a good idea if you're going to do this, overseed the lawn with annual or perennial rye, that you start taking that mowing height of your Bermuda grass lawn down so that you can get the seed down into the soil to make good soil contact. So usually you need to mow it down around 1 inch to 1.5 inches. Get all that growth removed in early September. The earlier the better. The next step is to come in and try to break up that soil a little bit, similar to how we did with the tall fescue, and try to work that soil up so that you're going to get good seed-soil contact. Then come back in and you can seed at the recommended rates, and afterwards lightly rake that, try to get it to mix up in with the seed in the soil. Apply a fertilizer and roll the area to make good seed-soil contact, and then finally come back in and then start lightly watering that area to get the seed crop. And it's usually about 3 light waterings a day to get that seed crop to germinate and start growing. Those are pretty much the basic steps involved. Sometimes we get some broadleaf weeds that will come up with the weed seed. It's a good idea to wait about 4, maybe 6 weeks before you spray a herbicide. Primarily broadleaf weeds are the biggest problem, so something that has 2,4-D or MCPP in it. There's a lot of products that are advertised as dandelion killers that are good broadleaf products. As far as mowing heights, you will have to mow it during the winter time, but it's not a lot of mowing, and what we like to do is try to keep the mowing heights fairly high, up around 2.5 inches. And during the colder part of the year, that ryegrass really doesn't grow that much, so you don't have to even mow it every week. It's something that will need to be mowed about once every 2 weeks at about 2 to 2.5 inches. And that's pretty much it.
Well, Mike, I know that the important thing is following this step by step to ensure a good stand and also good seedling establishment before we have some really cold days in early winter. So if you want information more detailed on how to overseed these warm season lawns with a cool season grass, then write us at Oklahoma Gardening and we'll send you the step-by-step instruction on doing this. You can also receive information on overseeding the thin areas, as we were doing earlier with the fescue lawn, from your local county extension office or from writing us here at Oklahoma Gardening. And Mike, we appreciate the time you spent with us today. This has been some very helpful information, and we'll look forward to having you again here on Oklahoma Gardening.
It was great to be here, Ray. I hope I have a chance to come back.
Great.